This next segment, a really special one. We're going to look a little behind the scenes at the Tour de France and some of the other biggest races in the world now. So without further ado, please welcome one of the men who has one of the most interesting jobs in the sport. It's Radio Tour's Seb Piquet.
Bonjour.
Welcome.
Bonjour, bonjour. Are we doing this in French?
Bienvenue.
Bienvenue, merci beaucoup.
Ça va?
So in French, perfect. I'm sure you'll all understand.
Thankfully, Seb speaks better English than I do.
I wish.
A little bit of a better accent, anyway. So, Radio Tour.
Yep.
In a minute, we're going to see a little video of you at work.
Right, right.
But for people in here who don't quite know what your job entails, what do you do?
So I'm sitting in the red car just behind the peloton with the race director of the Tour de France, Thierry Gouvenou, and the president of the commissaires. And I basically explain what's going on in the race. There's what I can see in the peloton, riders crashing, punctures, a rider asking for a bidon, and there's what I can't see at the front of the race, the breakaway riders. And for that, I have 3 motorbikes that explain, and we're going to see on the video probably, that tell me what goes on at the front, give me brakes, etc., etc. So I explain that in priority to the team cars that are behind me, and then to journalists like Rob Hatch.
Seb is vital for our work, by the way. He knows much more what's going on than we do.
Right, and eventually to VIP guests in the cars where I talk about villages, castles, cuisine, wine, voila.
If you're wondering where we get our stuff from. So I think we should have a little look at your work.
Sure. No, because I think what's very important to show is that Radio Tour is a team of people. So obviously I'm lucky enough to be in that car, the red car, but my job wouldn't be possible without, oh, how sexy.
Looking good there.
Sorry. Wouldn't be possible without the guys on the motorbikes. Bruno Thibault, he's a former rider. He did several Tour de France's. And there he is, with Castorama, with Motorola actually, with Lance Armstrong, and so he is my eyes on the race, and he tells me what I cannot see. So he's at the front. He'll tell me kilometer 15. There's a breakaway. There's number 21. There's number 53. There's number 153. They have a 10-second advantage over the pack. And then he says will tell me that on a special channel, and I will say on Radio Tour. And so so that's the way he works. So I have 3 motorbike riders at the front of the race on the Tour de France and Paris-Roubaix, and they explain what goes on at the front, and they do time gaps based on, at a specific point. Kilometer 3, they'll start the stopwatch, and then the second bike will stop the stopwatch when it gets there.
So that's you at work. What about a typical day on the Tour de France? What does your day look like?
On the Tour de France, it's a race like no other. So on the Tour de France, I will start my day 3 hours. I would go to the start 3 hours before the start. I also work for TV, so I do interviews of riders during an hour and a half before the start.
And after, Seb is often the voice you hear interviewing people straight after they've won.
Yeah, as well. And then I get into the car. I prepare my notes. I look at the stage to come. I settle down. I have my notes. I have my felt tips, and the
rest. Is there a special color coding?
There's a special color, special pink, green, etc.
Can you reveal the secrets?
No, I cannot, because that's really secret. All right.
I thought you were going to help me get better at my job. Never mind. What about moments? Because if your day looks like that, when you're in the race,
right,
you're privileged to see things firsthand that not even us as commentators see. I'm not sure if many of you know how it works, but obviously when we go to a race, we actually sit in a lorry at the finish line in front of a television. So what you see on your television is also what we see as commentators as well. Some people might imagine that we're following the race on a motorbike or something like that. No chance, because there'd be far too many motorbikes in the race. So you are our eyes and ears a lot of the time.
And it's a real privilege. It's a real privilege. I started in 2005, and I remember a stage going to Courchevel. And that's when, for the first time, I had goosebumps, and I was sitting there, and I felt, wow, this is something. I'm a privileged person. In front of me, Mancebo, Virenque, Armstrong, and I was, amazing.
Were you always a cycling
then I
fan?
knew what happened.
Were you always a cycling fan?
No, I started being a cycling fan in the late 80s. My first hero was Pascal Lino, a French rider who wore the yellow jersey for 12 days. He was my first hero. I ended up sharing rooms with him on the Tour de France. He was less my hero then.
You get too close to your heroes, man.
Right, exactly.
Any particular moments in the last few years, since 2005, that you remember being in the car for, good or bad?
Well, there are the moments where you realize that what you say is essential and it has repercussions, okay? I remember probably my second or third year, I was in the car in the final kilometer of a stage, and suddenly there was a crash. And someone in the car said, "Oh, Cavendish is on the floor." And I didn't check. I just said, "Oh, crash, Cavendish on the floor." A kilometer later, he won the stage.
Yeah.
All right? And so, as I say, it has repercussions to you, so you have to be extra careful. It's better not to say something than to say something wrong. So there are those moments, and then there are the moments of the painful moments, because in the morning you'll have a chat. I mean, I remember having a chat with Tony Galopin in the morning, doing an interview. He's become a friend, actually, and he was saying, "I'm going to be in the breakaway." And he was in the breakaway, and you'll be like, you can't be a fan, okay? You have to remain serious in what you do. But you see the guy at the front, and you feel, "Oh, this is good." And then you see the pack coming closer, and then you see the pack catching him, and then you see him dropped, and you overtake him, and you don't want to look at him, because it's a tough moment. Those
You know you might have to interview him in 20 minutes' time.
Well, yeah, but there's a sense of respect, I guess, and of in French you say pudeur. I don't know how you translate that, but you don't want to cross his eyes, because you feel bad for him, and he probably thinks, he's in his car, man. He's drinking champagne.
Well,
I don't drink champagne.
No champagne, big dinners. I'm pretty sure I've seen you sneaking off for a big dinner at the Tour de France. Does that form part of your daily routine, or maybe?
So in the car, we normally have. Well, at the time, I was working with a man called Jean-François Pecheux, who is the man who taught me everything. And we would have a bottle of champagne in the car.
A bottle? A
bottle of champagne, not just for the entire car, except for the driver, of course. And we would have a bottle of champagne during every stage, for every stage. The other thing is quite amusing, is that I work with a pedal. So basically, when I push on the pedal, everyone can hear me, okay? And and I was eating my sandwich, and I turned to the driver, and I naturally pushed on the pedal, and I said, "Oh, I have the pickles at the bottom of the bag." And I was actually speaking on Radio Tour, and in French it says, "J'ai les cornichons au fond de la sacoche," and everyone heard about this. All right, and the next day it was actually in the French newspaper, in L'Équipe, the newspaper, they were making fun of me.
Yeah, from a commentator's point of view as well, you're extremely gifted at what you do because of the fact that you are so fluently bilingual as well. You go to many races around the world, and there is a huge delay between the native language and then either the French or English translation, depending on where you are.
Yeah.
Seb will say something in French and very quickly just say the same thing in English as well. I mean, for French speakers, it's fine, but for other people who go there and don't understand the first phrase, you're extremely gifted to do what you do, and you do it very, very well. One final thing, rest on the Tour de France, because you're stuck in a car all day. You're going out for these dinners and maybe drinking a bottle of champagne in the evening.
Never.
Never, honest. How do you get through 3 weeks? Do you need a big holiday afterwards?
Well, first of all, during the race, you really have to obviously remain focused all the time, because anything can happen at any moment. A puncture, a crash, a rider asking for a bottle. Anything can happen, so you have to remain focused and have to keep your eyes on the race all the time. Thankfully, I have a driver who sometimes tells me, "Oh, watch out, someone's asking for a bottle." So you have to remain focused all the time. You can't have a nap, and sometimes when the race is long, when it's 5 hours...
Do you mean the first week of the Tour de France?
The whole 3 weeks of the Tour de France. and of World Championships, actually, because I also work on the Worlds. But so at those moments when I'm feeling really, really tired, I ask Thierry Gouvenou, the race director, I ask him, can you do race radio for 10 minutes? And I have a power nap for 10 minutes. And it's beautiful. I love it.
It works.
It works, yeah.
Okay, then it seems you touched, I think we've got one time for a little chat about the World Championship. It seems we're here at a World Championship theme, Rouleur. We've got 14 World Champions here, I think, this week. Maybe the number's gone up a little. You saw the latest World Champion being crowned this year. Mm-hmm. How different is the Worlds as a race to watch?
Well, it's completely different because, first of all, it's on a circuit. Although you have a long part that's not on the circuit before you get to the circuit. So
you get bored of the same scenery?
Well, no, you don't know. You don't get bored of the same scenery because you see the fans. And that's also a great part of my job, is seeing the fans, how ridiculous they could look. I love it. But it's very different also because in the car, you don't have the race organizer. I don't know if
yeah.
What I mean is that on the Tour de France, in the car, I have Thierry Gouvenou, who designs the course. On the World Championships, in the car, I have the president of the commissaires. He doesn't know the course, so it makes it there's a lot more pressure on his shoulders, actually on mine too, to make things right, okay?
Is there extra homework to be done?
There's extra homework to be done. There are different nations that you don't know. There are different riders that you don't know, especially because I take care of junior races, under 23 races. But it's a whole different atmosphere. And this year in Innsbruck was absolutely amazing. Probably the best Worlds that I was lucky to witness. Yeah.
Well, it was absolutely wonderful talking to you. Thanks for your insight into what is quite a unique job and an unsung hero of the Tour de France, the World Championships, and just about every race he works on. Certainly for us, ladies and gentlemen, it's Seb Piquet.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.